welcome caller. All right, so let me go ahead and caller try back. When good people do absolutely nothing, chaos, mayhem, disaster occurs, and then you ask yourself why. I never heard a question before people asking themselves. Yeah. I was silent. All right, so let me start over. We have time. So welcome, first of all, to Facts Not Fiction. And what I was saying is that after I welcome everybody, which you didn't hear, so I welcome you again. Welcome to the program. What I'm saying is that today would go down in history, and it will go down in history for more than one reason. Not just because our president was elected today, former Senate president, but it will go down in history because when good people do nothing, sometimes you ask yourself why, how we reach, where we going, how we going, and who really take us there. And we often look to point fingers and blame this one and blame that one and look at this one and because of him and because of her and because of he and because of she and because of them and because you know how the thing does go, right? We always look for somebody to blame. What has transpired today where Christine Kangaloo has been elected to take up the position of president in our country, it is no fault of the opposition. It is no fault of me and people like me. Because what we do on a daily basis is to try to bring all the facts to you, all the potential disaster which could occur as a result of that individual being elected to the position. And sometimes people spend more time looking and paying attention to other people's business while they do not pay attention to their own business. We often see what is happening in the neighbor house, but we seldom see what is occurring in our own home. And the reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, is simply because you spend more of your time looking at other people's affairs than spending time to fix yours. When that happens, it's a clear case of not only negligence, but it's a clear case that you put people's business before yours. We take time on these programs to help you to understand and to see what is happening in this country. We spend time to research, to look into governance, to look at our constitution, to look at our way of life. And the reason for that is that you can appreciate what is your role and responsibility as a citizen of this country. When you do not understand your role and responsibility in a country, then what happens is that you allow those in authority to misuse and to abuse the democratic process, which is structured to allow you to be a beneficiary of the state assets. And when you as individuals would not take time, would not spend a little time to look after your affair, to look after your life, to look after where you were to where you are, as to where you want to go, you, ladies and gentlemen, would not understand that ensuring the process of governance by way of the checks and balances and the independent institutions that is placed there to ensure that the government would not abuse its power. Because when the government abuses its power, it is simply abusing you. But you know, I don't know if it's because of our history in relation to coming out of slavery, and we get so immune with the abuse, and we get so brainwashed with the doctrine that today abuse comes as a way of life for you people in this country. I have seen that this government, this PNM, these people has adopted a behavioral pattern, a pattern which you came out from under the colonial days. And even while they execute that pattern of abuse on you, the people of this country, yet it seems as though that you cannot function without being abused. So we are seeing abuse in the homes. And I'm speaking about your home. We are seeing abuse on the streets. We are seeing abuse on the nation roads. We are experiencing abuse by the criminal elements. We are seeing abuse by some officers of the TTPS. Let me take a note of something that I want to come back to just now. We are seeing abuse by in license office in our institutions. All over this country, we are seeing and experiencing abuse. But yet to the end of the day, it appears as though if we do not get abused, we don't feel good. You, the people of this country, you are being abused by a government, which is the biggest form of abuse that you can experience, that you have ever experienced in your life. And yet, you do absolutely nothing about it. I saw today, I think it was in Siparia, a fight by the Fyzabad taxi stand with some girls. Ridiculous abuse. Abuse in the schools. But if there is abuse in these children homes, and you, the people of this country, never rise up and speak up and get up and demand that the Judith Jones report be implemented to protect the children, then it tell me what kind of criminals some of you people are in this country. If you could adjust yourself every time 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 600 plus deaths in a country, and you could adjust yourself to that. Every time there is a murder of a young girl, you adjust yourself to that. Every time there is a home invasion, you adjust yourself to that. You adjust yourself to every form of abuse in this Trinidad and Tobago, and you would do absolutely nothing. And when I mean nothing, absolutely nothing about the abuse that you continue to experience in governance for the past 7 years. I think it seems as though that this government have not abused you enough. It seems as you are begging for more. You want more. You are enjoying it. And when a society enjoys the abuse of a government, let me tell you something. We, Anil and others, could talk for the rest of our lives. Nothing will change, because you, the people of this country, enjoying, you like, you love what is happening to you. You love what is happening to you. When a dog sucking egg, I have seen people put hot egg in dog mouth. Dog ball, drop it and run. But as the egg get cold enough, as the egg get cold enough, Mr. Dog will come right back, and you will realize that the egg missing. That is a clear example of you people in Trinidad and Tobago. Every time something happens that you consider to be heinous, you talk, your texts. I think I understand why deceased Colonel Gaddafi and others in that part of the hemisphere didn't want social media and so on to infiltrate their land space. Because while it have its good, to some of you, I think it's the worst thing that happened. You have access to social media. Trust what I'm telling you. Because you have never utilized social media for the right purpose and reason. Most of you utilize social media for the wrong reason. And secondly, you utilize social media as your strength, while the truth and the fact is, it is your weakness. You believe that when you text and you tell Archie, we going on the streets and fight today, we standing up today, and 500 people read that, you tell yourself that you do something. But you know what happened? When the day reach, they can't see all you. When the time reach, they can't see all you at all. Because they're hiding behind that keyboard and hiding behind that device. That all the action all you have is right on that device. Nowhere else. You know what they call that? Weakness. Weak people. People with no strength. People with no desire for betterment in our country. You see, while you folks believe that something will automatically change and that some fairy godmother will fly across with this little stick and say, abracadabra, PNM must go. Zip! You see about 15 stars with some crystals flying and the PNM gone. Well, let me tell you something. Or they will sit right there and wait till 2025. And if all you in wake up and change that, I want to talk nice today, you know. If all in wake up and change that naive behavior that all you have, 2025 will come and go. And all you will punish. All your children will punish. You see, when you, the people of this country, allow democracy to be trampled upon by politicians, it is not the politician to blame, you know. It is not the politician to blame. It is the people to blame. Because the people of this country, you have become so jokey. You have become so jokey in this country that it ain't funny. That is what you allowed. So this little pep talk that I gave all you before we get into business, I hope that it will wake all you up and all you will understand where we going from here. Where do we go from here? We have seen, ladies and gentlemen, a government which is holding the reins of power for the past 7 years. Coming out of that 7 years, ladies and gentlemen, we have seen a number. We have experienced a number. We have felt the wrath and the agony by this administration. We have seen this government utilize a simple majority. A simple majority. We have seen this government utilize a simple majority and change legislations that required two-fifths. We have seen this government utilize its simple majority, pass laws that would require the opposition voters to pass it. We have seen, ladies and gentlemen, from the procurement legislation come right back, the government utilize its simple majority and made all these changes, removing the regulator, bringing pieces of legislation that governs, that will control your life. They have utilized a simple majority and create all this mayhem with the help of a speaker. Now, when we tolerate this type of behavior, what we have done to this country is a great injustice because of the precedent that is set by this administration, where they utilize simple majority and create all this havoc. What do you think will happen going forward when another government is installed with a simple majority? It will be the same dictatorial principles that is set down by this administration is what will take place in the future. And if you want to prove me wrong, let me give you a classic example. Basdeo Panday was the first prime minister to appoint losing candidates to the Senate. I'm showing you how a president is set, you know. Basdeo Panday was the first prime minister to appoint losing candidates at the general poll to the Senate. And when it was kicked against by the PNM, and they make this great hullabaloo about Panday breaking the law and Panday breaching the constitution, to the end of the day, when all was said and done, there was absolutely nothing in law to stop Pandey from appointing losing candidates to the Senate. Absolutely nothing. Nothing in law. But was it morally right? If you were rejected at the polls, do you believe that it was morally right to appoint persons who the poll reject to the upper house, to the Senate? So while the PNM made a big hullabaloo, what happened? Because of that precedent that was set by Basdeo Panday today, we also have the PNM appointed losing candidates to the Senate. You see how dangerous it is when you allow a precedent to be set in our society. You see, this is what the country should have stand up against. And because the country failed to stand up against that back then, today we are in a situation where the Prime Minister of this country takes a sitting PNM senator, Senate President, member, however you want to classify Christine Kangaloo. After in 2013, the same Prime Minister today, who was opposition leader, wrote and expressed his position that he would not support a Senate President, a Speaker of the House, a Cabinet Minister, or any member of Parliament, or any appointed members on any board by the UNC, he would not accept, he will not support. But today, the same Keith Rowley, who said that in 2013, today, the same Keith Rowley eat up his words like when a dog vomit and go back and gobble it and appoint the same thing that he rejected to the office of the president, while you the people agree. While you the people agree. Don't fool yourself and tell me, but all you agree, you know, don't mamagay me, you know, because I don't take mamagism. All you agree to Rowley decision, the country agree to Rowley decision. Because if the country did not agree to Rowley decision, the country would have get up and tell Rowley, we ain't agree. So all you agree to Rowley, just as all you agree to Basdeo Panday, appointing losing senators to the Senate, losing candidates, sorry, is the same way all you agree to Keith Rowley and his appointment with Christine Kangaloo to the Electoral College to be elected. So all you agree. Now, going forward, I want all you the people of this country to get your almanac, write down the date, and write below that I have agreed for the Senate President, a PNM former senator, to sit in the chair as president. Because let me tell you something. When it comes wrong again Don't fool yourself, you know. When it comes again, I want to hear some of you hypocrites, what all you will be saying when that happens. That is what I want to hear. We have seen a president who I considered not to be a full-fledged PNM. That is the outgoing president. I considered the outgoing president not to be a full-fledged PNM. Probably half-fledged. Not a full-fledged PNM. But yet that president who was appointed by the said prime minister, that president, ladies and gentlemen, operates, follow, and take instruction from the prime minister. That president, ladies and gentlemen, mash up, break up, mama guy, papi show, the document that she took an oath to uphold, to keep within the sacred precincts, trample upon it, giving the prime minister his wishes, and today we are still paying the price because of that conspiracy caused the mashing up of the Police Service Commission, and we are without a commissioner of police. Added to that, when I examined section 36 of the Constitution, and I saw that the president have a get out of jail free card in all him or her pocket. A get out of jail free card. The president could misbehave. The president could breach the Constitution. The president could break the law. The president is not accountable to any court in Trinidad and Tobago. Added to that, the president could do whatever the president wants. And if a prime minister doesn't see it fit to initiate a tribunal to have the president removed from office, especially if the president is in a political bed with the prime minister, then the country, the citizens, has no redress. I am saying tonight on record, and I want to hear the law lords, you know. I want to hear the attorneys. I want to hear the law association. I am saying it's about time that our constitution be revisited and laws must be put in place that the president of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, once the president break the law, then the president must answer in the courts of Trinidad and Tobago. That is what I am saying tonight. This shotgun section within the Constitution that Ellis Clark and Eric Williams and all of them concocted. I am saying tonight that no one is above the law, and the president must be accountable to the courts. When the president breached the laws while in office, that is what we must revisit, so we would not have a situation like the whole police service mash up and nobody, no one is held accountable for that gross misbehavior in public office. I think I had enough of hearing about president immune and president while in office and what president do, president can't answer for, and president above the courts and no courts can hold president account. You see that dotishness? You see that dotishness inside that document we call the Constitution? You see that dotishness that is written there? That today we have no commissioner of police. Today meritless go on reverse. Meritless supposed to only have 5 gears. First, forward. Second, forward. Third, forward. Fourth, forward. Fifth, forward. Meritless have no reverse gear. We have set another precedent in this country where a meritless reversed. A meritless went backward. When the next government or any government going forward do the same thing, I'm waiting to hear all the hypocrites. I'm waiting to hear all the law association. I waiting. Patiently I waiting to hear all you. I waited to hear all you. You see, just so I couldn't hear all you with the Armour situation, you see, I call all you was dumb and deaf and supportive. I waiting because you see, this is a country when you allow these serious breaches to go unanswered for. Do not expect that somebody who do the same thing down the road will have to answer. You hear what I'm telling you, Trinidad and Tobago? We have to think about the future. We are seeing, let me tell you one good thing about Keith Rowley that all you're not recognizing. The good thing about Keith Rowley that all you're not recognizing is that Keith Rowley showing all the weakness in the Constitution. All. I just hope people taking note. He's showing all how we could procure without procurement. He's showing all how our meritless could reverse without going forward. He's showing all how people could have all these big allegations, 4.4 million, 143,800, how who could sell car, who could, all that they're showing all here. I just hope that somebody taking notes. Because you see, what goes around comes around. And the law is not like your house, you know. There's unwritten laws that all you even seeing. You think every infringement is written in law? That's what you feel? Let me tell you something, Trinidad and Tobago. All you have not yet seen the worst of what is to come. All you didn't see it yet. Hold on. I wonder if my attorney friend ready to come on the show. My attorney friend is sitting right here, you know. Right here. Most present. And you hear what I'm saying? We have to bring laws to the parliament that a president must be accountable to the courts. A president must be accountable for the courts. We cannot allow what happened with the outgoing president and what may very well happen, because let me tell you something, we may very well have laws. Actually, we may very well have laws in this country passing overnight and being enacted, We getting tied up. We might have a piece of legislation come to the parliament this evening, and by the time tomorrow morning is law, all they stay there and play dotish. Stay there and play dotish.
Yeah, well, Victor, I hear you all the time. There. And I'm sitting on here pretending as a member of the audience listening to you. And it's sounding as if, the narrative you're putting across is we here in the public sitting down and allowing everything to take place and go by. No. What is Rowley is doing may not be right. It may not be right. But he is using the Cosa Nostra, and I'm using that word in a very collective term. He is using the Cosa Nostra, where he's controlling all organizations, all independent organizations, and everybody to bully and intimidate people. Right? Now, I am saying there may be, sometimes to get out of these situations, sometimes you need a champion. You need a champion person. So like in Russia right now, Putin getting real harass from the leader of the opposition, or the fellow who pretends to be the leader of the opposition. Right? Putin poison him, he going. And sometimes when you have champions, right? And I'm not saying our leader, but in a society there's always a set of champions like yourself, right? And it is these champions sometimes just have to take the lead, and then we ordinary people start to follow, right? So what I'm saying is, I listening to you, and it's I pretending I'm a member of the audience here, and I feeling as if I getting buff up that I ain't doing nothing. But sometimes when poor me go to do something, I get tear gas, right? I have friends like my partner Brian Stone. He's get locked up every time he go in the road to do something, right? And sometimes sometimes these people are left with bills in their hand and stains on their name, right? Now, I'm not saying we're supposed to just sit down and take that and adjust, but sometimes we need a champion to go behind.
And I hear you, Archie. I hear you loud and clear. But let me tell you what I also see. I have seen in this country that in 2010 and 2015, I have seen every Tom, Dick and Harry, every cat and mouse, every dog and cat on the streets. I have seen people on the streets, left, right, and center, who jump in, who wail in, who this, who that.
Right, and what I'm trying to tell you is, them could do that. Because them say, police had day of resistance. Police, protesting against 2010 to 2015. And I'm telling you something, all of them cook, wait, and all of them reroute people and things. Them could have do what they want and they would have get a blind. And this is why I'm telling you, the PNM, and I'm not even talking about government, the PNM, whether they're in government or opposition, they have this kind of control of the public service, and a lot of these so-called independent institutions, and you see them sleepers, they come out and turn big PNM Sawati, right? Look at what happened yesterday. A big chamber, a member, the head of a chamber, who's supposed to be seeking businessmen interest. When you hear crime rampant, they ball things is so bad. When you can't get foreign exchange, they say things is so bad. We now understand why things is so bad. So what I'm saying is, the PNM, Here now, man, I am telling you, when the UNC was in government, it had permanent secretaries. And I can't even say it on air. Permanent secretaries watching UNC ministers and say they don't respond to no. And I just can't even, I want you to imagine the nastiest thing they will tell a minister. So really and truly, the opposition here, who is people against the government, they're really at a disadvantage. And if you feel this studio that we standing up outside here right now can't get sanctioned, watch it, The Mahasabha wanted a license. Them had to go all the way to the little white men them there to get a license, right? You try and get a radio station now, Victor. Try and get a license for a TV station now. You'll have to end up by the white people in England to get that. So really and truly, and what I'm saying is, you need a couple more champions who will, and sometimes, Victor, we are our own enemies, fighting on ourselves, right? So,
let me go there this evening.
Let me don't go there this evening. But I am telling you, but what you're saying makes sense here. Let this thing continue. Let it continue. I am seeing, because of the Ukraine-Putin war, I have been watching the international news. And every time I'm watching what's happening in China, what's happening in Russia, what's happening in those countries that have war and things. And all I am seeing is dictators. And when I watch how their government is structured, right, like how the Russian government is structured, and I start to watch Trinidad, and I am noticing that Rowley has a structure almost like Russia. And the same way the oligarchs in Russia is using all these Swiss bank accounts and Bahamas offshore accounts and thing, I notice members of the government is going to those same places. Why?
You see, Archie, people have to understand in this country that what is happening in the country, Archie, is not something that just would affect the opposition. People have to understand what is happening in the country is not something that the opposition leader and MPs alone could fix. People have to understand that what is happening in the country, it is everybody business. And because when you examine this first past the post system, or this Westminster system as people like to call it, the opposition really and truly don't have the amount of teeth that it ought to have. The strength of the opposition.
But when Rowley was opposition leader, that man had teeth like a bulldog.
Well, let me tell you why, and that is what I'm going to know. The strength of the opposition is the people. That is where the opposition strength lies. The people. And the strength of the opposition also lies with some good lawyers. Not talk lawyers. You see lawyers who is able to differentiate, and to welcome Kyle Taklalsing, who is able to differentiate and who is able to maneuver. You see, actually, this thing is not just a overnight thing, This is not just an overnight thing. We have to be able, the opposition is as strong as its supporters. The opposition is also as strong as its leaders, and it's also as strong as its supporters. And the two have to be compatible. The two have to be compatible. You can't have one stronger than the other. Because the leader of the opposition and the team could be as strong as a bison. Let me tell you something. Unless they don't get the strength, that support from the members, then the opposition goes nowhere.
Well, let me tell you what I have hope in. I have hope in like them people who say no next to you. That is why I have hope in, and I think it's a nice introduction to
take this call before we start with Kai. Welcome, caller.
Yes, Silva Fox here, Tobago.
Go ahead, Fox.
I hear Archie talk, and I love how Archie talk here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Because I will tell you this. I'm going to tell you this now. Now, if Camilla was in power, the PNM people, the supporters of the PNM, would have been on the street. Now, Camilla Rowley in power. The opposition of Camilla is not coming out on the street. You see, talking and talking will not solve nothing. We can sit there all we want and rah whole night, whole day. It is solving nothing. The boots have to go on the street to change Trinidad and Tobago. What I'm telling you here tonight, now you, Robbie, you throwing hamper all over the place, giving out to this one, giving out to... Where are those people today? Where are those people today? When Carnival coming up here, go out on the street and you go see them. They're hungry now. They're bothering you. Robbie, come and see this road. Robbie, I don't want water in my tank. Robbie, the pharmacy have nothing. Robbie, the hospital in a mess. But who have it in a mess is we. We not getting up and shaking with tambourine and stopping this thing happening. How much people come out today? Trinidad have over 1 million people. How much come out today? The people do not care about themselves. I'm talking to you people. All you don't care about all yourself. All you will criticize other one. All you will criticize me for talking. But all you don't care one damn about all yourself. All you hypocrites. All the hypocrites. And when we cut the grass, we see all this PNM. If all you don't decide to get up and get Rowley out of here, nothing will happen. Not one thing will happen. Talk. Call Mr. Rowley and no good. Rowley this, Rowley that. Rowley said this. We can stop that. We, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, could stop that stupidness with Rowley. It's 22 of them. It's 1 million and something are we. What is the problem? All we got to do is bad talk one another. This one, that one, this, and we're not seeing about we own business. With children and them can't get work. We are studying that just because sometimes we have a little end for ourselves, so we don't care about others. We have to care about everybody right now. You see, with this president going in there, we have no rights just now. Just now, we will be automatically slave to the government because we are not shaking up and getting up to get it out. Idi Amin take over Africa, certain parts of Africa. Idi Amin do people all kind of things until he gets syphilis and he get mad. They run him. If Rowley were your daughter tomorrow, all your cars stop that because the dictatorship done inside there already. All you could do, you could watch, but you can't do nothing. But we could do it now. We can.
You lost him there? Come now, Fox, when they call in this program, put money on your phone now, man. Don't do with that. Thank you for your contribution, Fox. Welcome, Kyle.
Welcome. Good night to you and the viewers.
As usual.
Happy New Year. Was I here for New Year? Yes, I was, I think, yes.
Actually, you was here everybody New Year?
Yeah, I think so.
Busy. That time I see him here. It feel like it's since last year, you know. Kyle, earlier when I was speaking about the outgoing president and what we have experienced during her tenure as president in terms of the constitution and the mashing up of the Police Service Commission and the merit list being reversed instead of forward and so on. And I am of the firm view that I think that legislation needs to come to the parliament where the president must also be accountable to the courts. One of my reasons for saying this is that the purview in terms of setting up a tribunal lies with the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister solely. I mean, you guys, the Law Association, at one time had called for the setting up of a tribunal in relation to the Chief Justice, and we see how that went. As a matter of fact, the Rowley took a position, the courts ruled against his position, and he went back and he come back with a similar position, and that was it. Nobody could really force the Prime Minister to set up a tribunal to have the Chief Justice, the President, or any one of these individuals investigated or to remove out of office. So I am of the view that we, going forward, we need to avoid what has happened and the precedent that is set in relation, even with the meritless. I am thinking that going forward, we should have some amendments. We should be looking at the Constitution and bringing pieces of legislation in place where the President must also be accountable to the courts. Because once it's up to any political directorate, it could very well be, if you have a president who is working in your favor, then why would you want to set up a tribunal to remove that president? So what is your thoughts on that in terms of bringing legislation that the president must answer for any wrongdoing in office?
Well, it's a very complicated question because it depends on which powers you're dealing with the president. The president is accountable to the courts in some respect. You remember a couple of years ago, there was an issue with former Speaker of the House, Nizam Mohammed. Is Mohammed Bash? The one where he was on thing and he made a statement and the president removed him. His appointment was solely under the discretion of the president. President removed him and he was able to go to court. And he won a case against the president. Justice Judith Jones actually gave the judgment. And she made a declaration that the president's decision to remove him without giving him a right to be heard was unlawful and unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. So it's not that the president is not answerable to the courts. They are in some regards. In terms of, the president does enjoy an immunity in the Constitution, which says that you can't sue them civilly. But that's outside of the judicial review realm. So it's a little complicated. But I think what people have to understand, we could make laws from now till kingdom come. There's nothing like a perfect legal system. And I've studied many legal systems. Islamic legal system, I've studied ancient legal systems. I actually I've been studying the history of legal systems. Its development from ancient times, Babylonian times, all the way up to Greek, to early English, and the development of the rule of law. It's one of my hobbies. So regardless of the legal system that you have, you're never going to get a perfect legal system. There's always going to be reliance upon those persons who find themselves in political power. And a lot, therefore, depends on the citizen's choice of leader and leadership. It's always going to redound. You see, you have a democratic system. Everything cannot go to the court. And in fact, one of the criticisms in Britain right now in the debates is that they are too court-centric, because remember, the court struck down decisions to enter and exit Brexit and all kind of thing. But that was really a political decision. Even though the court found a way to find a ruling, and I agree with the ruling, ultimately some things are political decisions. And the way our constitution is set up is that the Prime Minister keeps a check and balance on the judiciary in the same way that the judiciary keeps a check and balance on the Prime Minister and the executive. It's a very, very delicate balance, but it's a balance. It's the best balance that we could have come up in 1976 with. Yes, there are things that needs to be revised. There's some say we should have an executive president. I personally don't think so. I think if you have an executive president, think about it. We are at the stage now where we essentially have an executive president. We have a political president, right? But we had a convention previously where politicians respected that the president's office ought to have some neutrality, or someone who is out of the adversarial politics.
Right.
Robinson is the only person that people have pointed to, but if anybody understands political history, they know that Robinson was a fiercely independent man. This is a man who told them to go to hell when they were trying to get him to surrender. He was shot. He was a brave man. And so you knew that nobody could really influence him. regardless of whatever reason Pandey may have had, Bastille Pandey had the time for putting him as president, whatever. And it turned out that way. He stood against the UNC and several decisions the UNC made. So those things are really what pointed in direction of a convention which is important for our constitution. I wrote an article about this recently, which says that, our democracy is not protected by the law alone or constitutional provisions alone. A lot of it has to do with convention. A lot of it has to do with forbearance, meaning that if you are in political power, you have to forbear. You can't behave like a dictator because you have power. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it falls with the people who have to put politicians, whether in your party, whether in your country, whether in your little village council. You have to choose people who you know are going to be democratic and democratically minded. In terms of legislation, yes, there are things we could tinker with. We could probably find better formulas for the president. We could probably find better formulas for the Senate. We could probably make the Senate into, some people have said the Senate should probably be proportional representation, and the House first past the post. There are many different formulas, and that is open to consultation, and we could do what we have to do. But ultimately, what we have here with this president is a clear breach of constitutional convention. And what has to happen is that the PNM must be punished at the polls. That is what has to happen. So we will have to endure this until another election is called. And when that election is called, people have to express politically that they don't want their country turning into a dictatorship. They don't want a one-party state, so to speak. And we must punish the PNM at the polls, because as far as I could see, the UNC has stood strongly against that. Every single member of the party has spoken out very strongly about Mrs. Kangalu's appointment. And really, when you look at what I saw another show where they were discussing, I think it was Ms. Nunes Teixeira, with all due respect to her, she was saying, she is not sure that the president could appoint these people. It must be at the direction of the cabinet. No, that's wrong. The president has a sole discretion to make certain appointments. The Police Service Commission is one. The Judicial and Legal Services, she gets to appoint 3 members. I think it's 112 of the Constitution, 111, 112. She appoints the Chief Justice with consultation. And consultation just means...
having a discussion.
Ms. Pasagri says, sir, I want to appoint X.
Have a discussion.
What do you have to say about that?
Yeah.
Okay, I've heard you. Mr. Prime Minister, you're... Okay, good. But the way it's going to work now is even that consultation provision is going to be nonsense, because really, what consultation is Ms. Kangalu and Mr. Rowley going to say? So what this discussion has to turn into, there's no legal challenge. There is absolutely no legal challenge that anybody can have against Kangalu's appointment. Mm-hmm. It's impossible. I know some lawyers may have this said differently, and we're looking into it. No, you can't. There's no challenge. What has to happen is that we have to understand what a democracy is. We have to understand as a people that democracy and open government and fairness is the best system that could take place. And that is the system that will take us into first world status. And once we understand that, and we're able to tell enough people that, we have to convince the population to vote for a government and a party that promotes democratic principles. And in my view, the only party that I have seen that could do that is the United National Congress. That is our motto. That is what we do. When we are in government, we respect and promote the rule of law. We've brought very, very liberal legislation to that effect. And one of the differences, let's look at one thing. The UNC called a state of emergency. I've heard that discussion. All they talk about rule of law, but all they had a state of emergency. PNM did as well. But what happened? When the UNC called it state of emergency, when the UNC felt that it needed to take strong measures to deal with a certain security risk, it made sure and went to Parliament and accounted and followed the provisions of the Constitution, because they see a state of emergency is not unconstitutional. The Constitution provides for it. But when the government wanted to lock down the country and essentially exercise state of emergency powers, the PNM, they didn't call a state of emergency initially. They used public health ordinance and regulations to lock everybody down, never brought it to Parliament, never allowed anybody to criticize it, run the country for 2 years under their thumbs like dictators, changing the law every month. If they feel they should have a mask and get locked up today, if your child don't have a mask, you should get locked up too. All kind of nonsense laws I saw. Literally being, the minister wakes up today and he says, well, something. He say, look, I passing a regulation and changing that. We had a point where you had a law which said that if a Hindu family wanted to cremate a loved one who had died with COVID-19, you couldn't observe your religious practices. You were denied from doing that, or else you'd be jailed. They basically said, well, look, when you burn a body, people are wrong, could get COVID from the flames, right? Nonsense. And that's what we lived with. So as far as I am concerned, the only party that respects the rule of law, that is ready to fight for democracy, is the United National Congress. I mean, you and I and maybe the viewers, I hope nobody screenshot this and said it, but you know, UNC ain't perfect. But certainly we are a party that respects the rule of law, and we are a party that, as far as I can see, I am convinced that they will fight for democracy. Right?
So let me go back to a point, a very pertinent point you made. You said that we have to enjoy this for the next 2 years. But let's just follow the pattern, the trend that we have seen for the last 7 years, which is existing under the hand of the ruler at this time. I am seeing a level of danger. I'm not sure if people seen it, but even in relation to what you just expressed there by ruling by a high hand during the past 2 years under the pandemic. If that trend continues, I am fearful that with this president and with the level of influence and contamination that this president is entering the office with, and I say level of influence and contamination, I'm speaking about PNM contamination, is it not very much dangerous where we can have serious boards appointment, for instance, like the Election and Boundaries Commission, which is a very important entity in the rule of democracy in our country. We have seen to some level in Tobago, the Election and Boundaries Commission, they were willing to go and conduct a particular exercise, an experiment in the Tobago election, which eventually gets struck down as it went along. But I am saying that we can be in a very dangerous situation with what is occurring now, and if the people, while Archie was speaking earlier on, if the people of the country do nothing and say nothing, and we have seen a trend develop by the sitting when this president take the chair, and we see a trend developing where these institutions are being interfered with, won't you say that in 2 years' time we may not have any level of democracy existing in this country?
Well, it's quite possible that our democracy has much more of a beating to take. And I think it will take a beating. But, you know, if you study history and you look at societies, it is a pendulum. We're going to swing. We have high points of democracy in any country, and I think our high point was probably on the United National Congress. It's going to move, and we've hit a low point now, and I think we're getting lower. But people have an innate ability to realize when their livelihoods and their quality of life is being threatened. And I think when you get that far down into a dictatorship, people are going to realize that. And Trinidad is not a society like some other societies where you have a kind of docility. We are a rebellious society. We come from rebellion. And I think that once we are able, you, the party, Archie, Anil, all of the MPs are able to sell to the people and to speak to people and convince people that we cannot accept a dictatorship because it is going to destroy our lives, the lives of our children, our own quality of life, our economic life, everything. And they start to see it, and they start to see the dictatorship taking hold. People are going to rebel. You see, in any country, there are people who don't want to be convinced, right? There are people who are happy, who benefit from this dictatorship. They don't want to be convinced. They will close a blind eye. There are people who you have already convinced, people who are suffering, people who are outside of the dictatorship, who want change. But there are enough people who think that, look, change has to happen. Something has to give, and we can't accept this anymore. And if you speak to those people enough, and you speak to them the right way, and you speak with the right message, I think you can convince them to change this dictatorial regime. That's what has to happen. You have to speak to the right people, and the right people have to do the speaking. And I think the UNC has been doing that. Day in, day out. I mean, whenever I have time, I lend my own voice in some press conferences, and whenever they call upon me, I definitely will answer the call. But enough people have to come forward, and I think by more and more people coming forward. It's so strange. Today I was chatting with some young lawyers, and people, I haven't seen them for a while, but some young lawyers, and they told me, look, we see that you're doing some cases. They spoke about the Victor Roberts and thing. And they kept, these are young people who just doing corporate work, and they said, well, can you teach me some judicial review and constitutional law? And I said, well, how come you never express any interest? They say, no, what's going on in the country now? Mm-hmm. More lawyers have to know these things to advise their clients, because more and more people are coming in to their offices saying that their rights are being infringed. So you see, naturally, things are happening. And naturally, lawyers, some of the younger legal profession, they're waking up and they realize, and that's not only the legal profession, I think every profession, and I think everybody, business class, they understand what is happening. I mean, you have, without getting into any politics, you have some businessmen who went the other way. I'm not going to call any name and thing, right? I think Anil dealt with that on the last thing. And good luck to whoever. I have nothing bad to say about anybody. But at the end of the day, we as individuals, we as citizens, have to take it upon ourselves to make the change and be the change and convince people. And to convince people, you can't just parrot things. You have to educate yourself. You have to read. You have to think about things. And your message has to be strong, and it has to be mature, and it has to be good.
So I'll put you on the spot one time.
I'm afraid when you see that, Archie, press record and we'll delete
Archie,
it.
I'm going to put him on the
Archie,
spot.
do a little delay.
I'm going to put him on the spot one time.
Do a 2-minute delay. You can do the delay.
So I am going to be moving facts, not fiction, out of the studio.
Right.
This program.
Good idea.
I am going to be moving this program out of the studio, and I'm going to be putting this program on the streets.
Right.
And why I said I'm going to put you on the spot one time is that when I move this program to the streets, I will need some of your expertise.
Always.
and others to really start moving. And because you see, we could reach a certain amount of people on these programs, right? We reach a certain amount of people on the programs, but we need to reach more people. So I was talking, me and Archie was talking recently, and my thoughts right now with Archie agreement is we want to move this program out of the studio, and we want to put the program on the streets. So I just want to put you on the spot one time in asking for your assistance as we move to the streets.
No, I'm more than willing to do that.
Right, so we come back to this point now. So, I agree that people would take as much as they could take. But if you have a prime minister who is interested only in power and more power, and has the tools in every institution to create that mechanism of full power, don't you think that it's really a chance-taking period that we are entering in, not knowing, because while we may, actually could take them when they come, while we may point out the ills, and deep inside we also hoping that the president, and this could only be hope, that the president would have some level of independence.
No, don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. Don't live in false hope. I, as a lawyer, am trained to think worst case, right? That's how we train. And if that happens, I don't even want to say that. It's not going to happen. She's been put there for a reason. You have to understand, when you do law and you deal with people and you cross-examine and you figure out, I have to deal with fraud and that kind of thing on a regular. I see fraudsters, right? This was a fraudulent appointment. This was an appointment that was designed to control institutions that the government thinks it does not have sufficient control of.
Right. Hold your point, right? It's very important. Welcome, caller.
Yes, Silver Fox here. The phone cut off. I don't know how we cut off, Robbie.
Go ahead.
Yes.
You cut off? Right. So you're saying this is an appointment for a
no, this is a
purpose.
fraudulent. It's a fraudulent appointment. And why I say it's a fraudulent appointment, I listened to Dr. Rowley today, and he tries to tell the country that we should support this and that kind. That isn't a democracy. Nobody must think that we have some duty to support a bad decision, right? I want to explain. People must understand what fascism is, right? People use the word loosely, but you must understand what fascism is. Fascism grew up, it sprung up in Italy under the time of Mussolini. Basically what it was is that if you dissented from a national position, you were called a traitor, or you were called unpatriotic. Who does that remind you of, right? Everything that comes out of the PNM and Rowley is that if you don't support COVID, you're unpatriotic. You bring a case to court, you're unpatriotic. You don't support vaccine mandate, you're unpatriotic. In a democracy,
you talk about Delcy Rodriguez,
you're unpatriotic, right? And that is what fascism is, and that is what feeds a dictatorship. That is how these dictators behave. And that speech today, he might have sounded and looked regal. It actually was the worst that I have seen a prime minister address anybody. He basically asked the country, well, we must support the president. No, we must not. Now, nobody is saying to get into insurrection or raise arms, or nobody is saying that, But if you disagree with a decision, you have a duty to say it, to keep saying it, to say it lawfully, to demonstrate about it until you get the change. And if you don't get the change, well, then you die fighting for change.
We have a call, Archie. Welcome.
Yeah, good night, gentlemen. Good night, I guess.
Kyle Takla Singh.
Good night.
Kyle Takla Singh. Good discussion, following the discussion, right? Is a couple of things, a couple of points I just want to raise. You mentioned that, Mr. Takla Singh, that, you brought fascism into the discussion, right? And I have come to realize over the years, how fascist the PNM could be, and how tribal they could be in their, in their thinking. And it's about tribalism. The 48 people who voted for Ms. Kangaloo, 48 non-thinkers. There are 48 idiots in my estimation. They are non-thinkers. They don't know what they're doing. And I would say, that is idiotic, and that is unpatriotic, because they don't understand what democracy is. Next point. The election of Ms. Kangaloo to the position is Plan B, because she
I wasn't hearing much, but I think...
Call back, we lost you. Call back, we leaving the lines there for you. Call back, we lost you there. Call back.
From what I heard, he's on the right track. The volume was a little low, but he exactly right. A lot of what happened today was really just go along with the leader. Just go along with the leader. And any sane person who understands what constitutionalism is about, not necessarily adhering to the language of the Constitution, but understanding constitutional conventions and democratic practices, has to accept that Kangaloo was not a good appointment, should not have been appointed, and should have been willing to oppose it.
That's the caller. Call back. Welcome, caller.
Hello, good night, Mr. Roberts.
Yes, sir. Good night.
And your co-host.
Kyle Taklal Singh.
Hi, good night.
Yes, good night, sir. Mr. Roberts, I had asked you a question concerning the one-time $1,000 grant for the transportation. Yeah, and you told me that you was going to get back to us on that.
Right.
Did you get any information as to?
Well, what I get is no information, and I'll just explain to you. I spoke to someone from social services in relation to that, and while they said they did hear the statement, what they're saying is that nothing was put in place to actually carry out the action of the statement that was made in relation to that one-time $1,000. So I am still, they promised to look into it further for me, and I should have the rest of that information by Tuesday, please God.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Not a problem, sir.
Good night.
Yeah.
Right, so we were talking about the previous caller who spoke
Yeah.
about
So,
tribalism and-
no, it's right. And nobody has had the temerity to tell Dr. Rowley in his party that, that's just absolutely not on. It's a horrible choice. Don't do it. We are in power. I mean, you're in the PNM, you're in power. How much more power do you want? How much more power do you want? And what are you going to do? Sacrifice people who have merit, who have intelligence, to put party cronies in these positions?
So wait, so Attorney Kyle, you're trying to say the UNC therefore is much more advanced democratically than the PNM, because when we watch it, it appears very likely that a couple UNC MPs or senators may have voted for or not voted for the candidate preferred by the party.
Well, I think the leader dealt with that. She gave a perfect response. She said that democracy is alive in the UNC, and there was no whip. From my understanding of what she said, there was no whip, and I think some UNC MPs voted for neither candidate. I haven't looked at the official report on it, but from my understanding, there were 3 ballots that were spoiled,
Yes.
so that they didn't vote for either candidate. They certainly weren't voting for candidate. The main thing is they did not vote for Kangaloo. That I think is the important point. Whether they decided to vote for Mr. Khan, that's a personal decision. Listen, when you go to a voting booth, is you God on your conscience.
So I think we will speak about some more on another occasion. But
Yeah, actually, you're
let's-
trying to set them
let's-
up a feeling.
Let's just, I just want to get to this point because the caller was making a very salient point when he spoke of tribalism and so on. And but I mean, in the real sense, how would these people face their children and their grandchildren going forward based on decisions that they support now? Because I mean, when you look at what is existing, and I'm speaking from a general sense, where today I was speaking to someone in a certain position, and that individual was saying to me, Mr. Roberts, I mean, and this was the exact words, the UNC imperfect. The individual said, I believe it has some people in the UNC who should not be in the UNC. But what you have never seen coming out of the UNC is what you have experiencing in the PNM. And I take that for some credit and some merit, because it's a fact. I mean, when you look at all those MPs who will stand up with the leader and will go with the leader, whether it's right decisions and if it's right decision, it's good. But I mean, wrong decisions that could cause, the demise of your children, your grandchildren going forward. Why would you want to support such a decision?
I don't think people want to. I mean, yes, I understand. For years we've marred this political analysis in our country saying that, it's tribal politics. I honestly don't think, maybe I am naive, that elections are settled on tribal politics. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong, but I have looked at, some of the data. I understand evidence. I think it plays a part. But it depends on where your tribe is, right? That type of sway holds force over a limited amount of people, and I think day by day that pool of people is getting smaller and smaller. People understand things now, and I think they vote a lot for performance. I mean, we have a prominent, and I want to raise the example, we have a prominent Chaguanas businessman, Hindu, and he's gone across to the PNM, right? If it was that tribal politics was so powerful, then why would he leave, right?
Well,
and that's just to make the example. I don't want to get into why he leave, right? Of course, don't pull me this show for bacchanal, right? I'm a lawyer, right? But it's just to say by analogy and by evidence. If it is you had all this tribal, right? Why do you have those things happening? And it's not only one side; it's another side. There was someone recently, I believe, from the PNM side, a former thing, came across to the UNC and he spoke on our platform and he's now UNC. So it happens both sides, right?
And the point I was going to make while I laughed just now there is really to say tribal politics will play a part, but then there's other things that.
So what tribe is DPL Jonoff or Anil or Wedma?
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to that tribal politics. Yes, it plays a part. I don't subscribe to it, and I think the more and more people look at it, it's really about decisions, and it's really about decisions, and it's about the way you carry yourself. People will respect you. Much people. I mean, I spent a lot of my early career.
Welcome, caller.
I'll be calling again. Like my network was giving trouble, so I will be quick.
Right.
Yeah, I was saying that those 48 people who voted for Mr. Skangalu, they have no integrity, and they were just going along to get along, and that is part of the fascism that we're experiencing in Trinidad. You understand? So there's no law preventing the Prime Minister from choosing or from nominating Ms. Kangalu or somebody who is politically affiliated. There's no law. But in terms of morality and appearing to be independent, that go out the door. And the thing about it is that at this stage, what is Rowley going to recommend to me to vote for who? The man is a pathological liar, and he has been so for a long time. I mean, nothing he says has integrity. Nothing he does has integrity. That's the kind of person he is. Now, we have a couple of things. She was talking about having a champion to rise and so on, but our society is so strange. Victor, I remember on a radio program sometime in 2021 when you spoke about THS, at a particular time at a street corner when they were trying to get you not to contest the election, that kind of thing. I remember that. Those things resonate, Victor. Those things resonate. Now, that connected to crime, you understand? And that connected to higher ups, right? Now, let me connect another dot. A gentleman jumped the median, parked his van, and almost hit somebody in Trinity Mount 2 years ago. The man looking ordinary father, say he's a father, son, and son, right? I walked into True Value and say, that drive you give there is a bad drive, but you shouldn't do that. People say they go call Gary Fear. He say, Gary, I want to do it, I just come to get a few things from my wife and my children. And he say, watch me, I just get people for a living. He raised his jersey, he show me something in the supermarket. I back off. I say, God be praised. So this thing is so ordinary. And it could go on and on connecting to crime, understand?
Yeah.
The way in which the government have a stranglehold on independent institution, the Police Service Commission, and it goes on and on and on and on. It just became. So with God's help, we will be able to rise up and try and change this country somehow or the other. And tomorrow is another chapter in the life of our beloved country, Trinidad and Tobago. Keep fighting the good fight, gentlemen, and always be safe, as usual.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah, no, so he's right. I mean, we're talking about the tribalism, and as I said, I don't think that an issue like democracy is going to be decided by tribalism. I think regardless of the tribe, nobody wants to live in a dictatorship. Nobody wants to live under oppression. Nobody wants their rights and freedoms taken away from them, right? So I don't subscribe to that, you know, and people want to gravitate towards any organization that promotes democracy, human rights, good laws, good governance, and a good quality of life. And I think once you could sell that, and who is selling it, I think that's important. And it could be done. I mean, I remember there was a study by some professors in America.
Yeah, somebody actually?
Yeah.
Welcome. Welcome, caller.
Yeah, Mr. Victor.
Yes, good night.
Good night to you and your panel member there. You hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Right. They're one of the men who is very concerned about my country right now. I want to say to the people who made that foolish decision in this country. You see these people? I am 60 years of age right now, and I'm going to remind them of what they did to my country. I'm going to remind them what they did to Trinidad and Tobago because of politics. I'm also going to remind them we was warned. We was warned. I track back from the time of Mr. Ellis Clark, rest in peace, to up to this president, and it's the first time we have it like this, and it's every corner people speaking about this thing. You see, you one people, you 10, 12 people who call in radio station and promoting this foolishness that all they are allowed to take place in Trinidad and Tobago, all they see nothing yet. Mr. Victor, when last you come to Port of Spain? Hello?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you come to Port of Spain right now, Port of Spain is as empty as could be. People shame. They are so shame at what's going on. But you know what's the problem? The problem is my people. Or they're mad, or they're crazy, or they will live to regret this day. That's what you all did. Oh, you have a clip playing, woman telling you, carry the plane and gospel from every house. And you never hear Sheriff Clark say these things. You never hear no Rationale say that. You never hear no one of the other presidents say these things. But you all come out and say these things. Or you come out and allow this boy. But then all the old goats gone home by what they didn't put the and them to tell me by. This is not in that area right now. I don't want to be talking too hard, but I just listen to the program and I say I must train myself. And I want to close by saying this to the media house that I'm calling in that whenever somebody have a different view, call that radio station. I see one of the people today was making themselves a fool in Port of Spain while the people were by the red house there.
Yeah.
You see all there? We ain't going to forget all there, no? We ain't going to forget all there at all. I want all to pull up Jim Jones and watch that documentary of Jim Jones. That is how the people in face was when they realized Jim Jones was nothing good. All of them tried to get out of it, but it was a waste of time. All them know get all the Jim Jones, all them things nothing yet. I've gone.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah, so, you know, I agree.
So with the time we have left, Mr. Takal Singh, of course, I know you were supposed to be discussing a Newsday article.
Yeah. Well, what I want to say,
shed some light on it.
Well, the first thing I want to say is that after today, we don't want to discuss it, right?
Right.
Because it's in court. So once things in court, we have to respect the court process. But I think everybody, holy calls for now.
After this one, welcome, caller.
Yes, hi, this is Roger Hayward. Hello?
Yes, good night.
Good night. Yes, Anthony Robert, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we hear you.
Hello? Yes, this country well going well bad by because with this PNM government by they're well overdoing it because last time I voted for Kamala and everything was going well good by. Yeah, and I go vote for she again. I love support she. Yeah.
Thank you.
But with this, yeah, I was saying a question with this food price and everything that's going up very high, boy. And the way how this place going, crime just going right through. And I have one more question. I say the new president would have put there. I'm not supporting that. Yeah.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah.
Alright,
Thanks for your call, man. Excellent.
Yeah, things were much better under the United National Congress, that's for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just so after today, we don't want to do any discussing. It's in court. Everybody knew that we tried to pull off our march. The police denied it, and now they have to answer in court. What has happened so far? We filed all the documents. We filed the affidavit evidence. We filed an application for leave. The court has considered our application, and it feels that we have a strong enough case to proceed to a trial. Essentially, that is what the position is. We wrote to the police. We didn't get any responses, any response to the pre-action calls. All of those things took place. And therefore, what has to happen now, I think, is we let the court decide. We're going to get a ruling one way or the other. It is going to clarify some of that law. Because sometimes you file a case in court, you want the law clarified. I think a large part of it is that. A large part of it is that they denied us our permission to march, and they must come and answer to the court why.
Right.
And they refuse to tell us. So if you refuse to tell us in a letter, we have to go to court to get the reason. And we must be satisfied that the reason is good enough. And in my view, what took place was totally unlawful and totally unconstitutional. The police have to answer for that. And the specific police officers have to also answer for that, in my view. Because this must not be allowed to happen again when it comes to people's freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom to demonstrate. It can't happen. So what we have now is the matter has been filed. It is in court. The court has granted leave. What will take place? I think we have a hearing sometime in March. In March, the court will set timetables. So you put in your written submissions, and you do what you have to do, and the court will give its ruling when it is ready to rule.
Good. So there you have it, people.
We are in court, and we are doing what we have to do. We're taking the steps.
Give me one verse of a song there. One verse.
I have a political cemetery. It's not for people like you and me. It is for all them politicians. And I dig in the grave, no fuck with me.
Right, so there you have it. Actually, we about 15 minutes over the normal finish time, and of course, I would understand why. Any closing remarks, my brother, before you?
No, I think people must not be too despondent about what happened today. I think to a large extent, everybody knew that this was going to happen. She was going to be appointed. I don't think enough independent voices came forward to object. I thought that a lot of people who are there speaking whenever the UNC is in power, they have the loudest voices, very quiet about what I see to perhaps be the biggest blow to our democracy that has happened, at least in my lifetime. Well, of course, apart from the insurrection and that kind of thing. But this is, in terms of political decisions, this has to be one of the worst that I've ever seen. Do not accept it. Do not accept it simply because the Prime Minister says, well, it's over, we have to support her. No, you don't have to support her. There is something called legal resistance and lawful resistance. And that is the way to deal with oppressors and dictators. Make no mistake about it. She is there for a purpose. Don't get lulled into the belief that she's there and maybe she might do better. She's not. Any opening in any public service commission, in any service commission, whether it be judicial, the PNM is going to approve that. She's not going to act without the PNM. That is my firm view. And that will be a direct result from Dr. Rowley.
Right.
And what you will see happening very soon, unfortunately, is some of our appointments are going to have serious ramifications. But thank God there are some institutions that the PNM cannot touch. One of them is the Privy Council. They don't have nor do I ever think they'll get the constitutional majority to change the Privy Council. So thank God for that. We still have a loyal opposition. They can't get rid of that. They can't stop you from speaking. They might oppress you. They might try to lock you up, but we have strong enough members there that I think will keep doing what we have to do. And we still have some elements of the media that I think are very free and strong. So that is what we have to hold on to, and we have to support what we have and fight what is against us as a people. And that is the way to take back our democracy.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my brother. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, we will be moving this program to the streets. We will be coming to your community. We will be coming to your playground. We will be coming to your malls. We will be coming to your savannas. We will be coming anywhere we can. So, do expect us, and our motive would be to educate you and to give you a better understanding of not only your rights and your duty, but we will go into the Constitution to help you and to bring a clearer picture to your mind so that you can know exactly where this country is heading and what we need to do in order to resist the approach to interfere with our democratic process, our democratic rights, and our democracy. Archie Douglas Politics tomorrow?
Live.
Right.
7:30.
So 7:30 Douglas Politics tomorrow. We have press
conference on
Sunday.
And very likely we shall be returning to the Monday night virtual forum.
And one of the things we have to pick up, I will come and speak about this Concord Act issue that is taking place in the country. Right. It's
so
a
could
very,
we do that
very
on
important
Tuesday?
issue. Yeah, we should be able to. No, Tuesday. Yeah, we should be able. I'll check my diary, but I should be able to come on Tuesday.
Right.
And I want to deal with that about 10-15 minutes as to why it's so dangerous, as to what the government is doing with education. Classic move of all dictators is to take over the education system because it indoctrinates children and young people into this kind of fascism and PNMism, I would call it now, right? So we have to fight it, don't worry.
So, Victor, when you taking the show, you talk about taking the show on the road. Would the audience be able to participate in your show? Would they be able to ask your guests any questions? And
That is actually the answer.
Well, I think we will have to work out the dynamics with it, Archie. Of course, we will try to have a live microphone where the audience will be able to ask whatever question in relation to the subject matter that we will be dealing with. Remember, this is facts, not fiction. This drive is to really educate the public, to help the public to understand, get a better knowledge of their constitutional rights. And of course, we will also entertain questions from that standpoint. We will try to have the competent, qualified persons available to answer those questions. So, of course, the audience will be able to participate. Anything else?
That is about it.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Tuesday we will try to have the attorney back here to deal with the Concord Act issue. And Friday, God's willing, next week, we may be hitting the streets for the first Facts Not Fiction program. So actually, I think we could probably work one in studio, one out, right?
Yes, and well, we will work it
as we go along.
To the mood and the swing and the
good
dictates of the day.
So we trying the first on Friday on the streets.
Correct.
Right, so there you have it. Expect us Friday. Tuesday we'll tell you where we will be on Friday, and we invite you to come out. You will have the opportunity to ask questions pertaining to the subject matter that we're dealing with. And stay blessed, stay safe, stay with God. We out of here.
With joy in my heart, put him down with glee. All of them useless politicians, only making up numbers in my island. Al-Rari, I refuse body. I leave them Muslim, them to deal with he. Big smile on my face and with maybe a hand. It's time to move trash from out of this land. Taking my time with he, I personally will prepare his body. Make sure he have a sardonic grin on his face. That's all he does do. That man is a Cause